College of Business and Economics Advisory Board for, is it 7?
About 7 years.
About
Chris,
7
yeah.
years. And in fact, he has always been our strongest advocate for the things that we do that are related to ethics and integrity, and I think you will see that in his life as well. So I'm really glad to have you all here today to hear what Paul has to say, and we're really appreciative of him taking time out of his very busy schedule to be here with you. Just briefly, I want to tell you a little bit about him. For those of you who don't know, he's been in the outdoor advertising business for nearly 37 years. Did you do this already?
No.
Okay, he is the president of Clear Channel Outdoor Incorporated Milwaukee Division. And Clear Channel Outdoor is a subsidiary of Clear Channel Worldwide. And if you don't know, some of the major venues for which they provide advertising are Times Square, Piccadilly Circus in London, Millennium Mile in LA, the Boardwalk in Atlantic City, so some pretty impressive clients. They've seen tremendous growth in the U.S. market, especially with the addition of digital billboards, and the College of Business and Economics was the fortunate recipient of some advertising as a gift from Paul and from Clear Channel so that we could better promote our programs in the Milwaukee region. But most importantly, in addition to serving their clients, Clear Channel is deeply committed to public service. And in 2012, Clear Channel Outdoor Milwaukee partnered with over 100 causes ranging from various run walks, healthcare issues and helplines to fundraisers and community awareness programs, contributing over $1.6 million in advertising space. So when we say that business has a tremendous capacity to do good in the world, which it does, I think Clear Channel Outdoor under Paul's leadership is a perfect example of that. He's been a board member of the Better Business Bureau of Wisconsin since 1996 and served as chairman of that board from 2003 to 2005. He strongly believes in giving back to the community and is involved in a number of organizations, including La Casa de Esperanza, the Steering Committee for Ronald McDonald Charities, Mahoney Foundation, and also, and most importantly, he serves on the College of Business and Economics Advisory Board. And he's now taken on the most important role of a lifetime. He's a brand new grandfather. So
there you go.
Sarah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, if I sound a little groggy today, it's because I've had about 2 hours of sleep in the past couple of days. My son and my daughter-in-law just gave birth to our first grandchild yesterday, so it was a long day, but I'm so happy to be here again at Whitewater. I'm a 1972 graduate of the School of Business, and you know what I've seen in the past 7 years returning to Whitewater. I come back a couple times during the year to be on the advisory board, and it's a real thrill to work with people with the devotion and dedication that Dean Clements and Praveen and Lois Smith and others, Chancellor Telfor, provide this university. It's one of the reasons why I like to be a part of this university, is because of the commitment that these people show. One thing I want to say about this university, it seems to be like you're all in the business school. We have hired people from Whitewater, and I will tell you something right now, you can't beat the people that we've hired from Whitewater. I will pit them against anybody that I've ever seen. I've worked in a number of branches throughout the United States, and they're top notch. The work ethic is terrific, intelligent people, and I guess the bottom line is that you can be anything you want to be as long as you apply yourself and pay attention and start early and work hard and have a good work ethic. And this university can provide that vehicle to your success. So I just wanted to mention that. I would also be remiss not to mention the unfortunate occurrence that happened in Boston last week. We have a large office there. We had a couple of people from our office running that event. You talk about something bad happening, I refer to that as a black swan event. It was an event that brought together people for a very joyous activity, and something very unfortunate happened. But within that, a lot of good happened too. You saw a lot of people come to the rescue of some very badly injured people. You saw the police officers and the FBI, and you saw the patience that the citizens of Boston demonstrated. So again, a black swan event, but there were many, many white swans, and the people that did this will suffer the consequences for doing what they've done. Now that leads me into my discussion today. It's not going to talk about that, but it's going to talk about what Dean Clements talked about, and that is the Code of Business Ethics and Conduct. I'd like to divide my talk into three parts today. Number one, the consequences of bad conduct in the workplace, and the consequences that I will get to. Number two, social responsibility for the workplace, corporate responsibility, social responsibility. And number three, a panel that I sat on a couple of years ago was called the LEAP panel, and it was in the main auditorium here, and I thought it was a pretty good exercise where it gave our thoughts on being prepared for the workplace. And I would invite you after this talk, following this talk, for you to ask any questions that you want. A couple times I've had many questions. They were great questions, but just feel free to ask me any question related to this or any question that you want to ask related to business. So with that, I'll start. It's important that we have the discussion of business and business conduct and ethics in our universities to advance and place an importance on positive ethics and put integrity, humility, and courage and respect for one another and put into action as each of you enter the workforce and become the future workers, managers, and CEOs in business. Each of you have a responsibility to act with integrity and honesty in all that you do. Some of the reckless and irresponsible behavior demonstrated in the business world in recent years is very disturbing. In these cases where business is compromised, their responsibility to act with integrity and honesty resulted in the destruction of some very large companies, and people losing their jobs, wiping out shareholder value, people going to jail, and just a mistrust of Wall Street in general. I also want to say that reckless behavior in the business world today is not the norm, but rather it is the exception. I can say that after nearly 40 years in the business world through my association and interaction with people from our company and that of quite a few other businesses I've had the pleasure to work with. There are some wonderful people out there that act with integrity, and I think that's the norm. And what I'm going to talk about today is really not the norm, but it does happen, and I think it's imperative and important that we talk about it. When integrity and honesty are compromised, it can have a devastating effect, and it can happen quickly. A factor as to why this may be occurring in the business world today is the highly competitive nature of business today and greed. It comes down to survival of the fittest, get it done today. We can't allow the other guy to beat us to the market. It's a world who can ever implement smoother, innovate better, and execute faster. Only the best will survive and thrive. Those who don't will become irrelevant or die. One just need to look at BlackBerry. That's a company that's trying to make a comeback. I'm not sure if they're going to make it, but they're attempting, otherwise known as RIM. They were the king of the pile. Now they're just one of. Yahoo and AOL. Yahoo, new CEO, Melissa Mayer, she's attempting to make a comeback of that company. Both are trying to make a comeback. There are other factors. Best Buy, which has become a showroom for Amazon. Nokia, Blockbuster, Polaroid Corporation. There's the insatiable need to be better, faster, and outdo your competition and always live up to the expectations of shareholders and demands of Wall Street. For some leaders, a code of business conduct and ethics are just words without meaning. We'll look at some of the companies who ignore the rules of good business and ethics. I was glad to see that our company just revised the code of business ethics just a couple of weeks ago. I know something was handed out to you. Ours is a little bit more voluminous. Ours is about 40 pages long. We just got this about 2 weeks ago, and it's something that I've been reviewing, and all of our employees have to review too. It's the Code of Business Conduct and Ethics, and it's wonderful to see that our company is doing it. It's important because it provides guidelines, most of the things we know, but they're important to repeat to people because we do operate a business, we do run a business, and it's important to have a guideline to follow. Strong guidelines, though, these are strong guidelines, but unless our business leaders and employees follow the rules and guidelines, we could end up just like Enron, once the great trading, natural gas, and electric utilities companies based in Houston, Texas. It employed about 21,000 people by mid-2001 before it went bankrupt. Fraudulent accounting behavior, techniques allowed by their leaders, Kenneth Lay, who's now deceased, Jeff Skilling, now serving more than 24 years in prison, ruined 21,000 lives and caused their share price to plunge to 30 cents. Then there was WorldCom, led by Bernie Ebbers, another accounting scandal that created billions in illusory earnings. This is a company that had more than $107 billion in assets, far surpassing those of Enron. It improperly accounted for more than $3.8 billion of expenses. The result, the consequences, bankruptcy. The largest U.S. case in time, at the time. Once again, employees' lives were disrupted or ruined, and shareholder value was completely lost. Then there was Tyco. CEO Dennis Kozlowski, a finance chief Mark Schwartz were sentenced up to 25 years in prison for stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from the company. How about a company closer to home and more recent occurrence? Cost Corporation. A lady by the name of Sue Sakdeva, their VP of Finance and secretary, went on a $31 million shopping spree that was unfortunately not discovered by auditors. To me, that's unbelievable. It almost sunk the company. It didn't sink the company, but almost did. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Their actions drove so deeply into subprime and other risky mortgages that there was no way out when the real estate bubble burst in 2008. And then there were the banks that were willing to lend to anyone that had a heartbeat. No questions asked. How much do you want? And yes, part of the blame must go to the consumer, who wanted a piece of the American dream by any way possible. Consequences, ladies and gentlemen. The story never ends well when good intentions are compromised. When business conduct and ethics are ignored, winner take all, ethics be damned, there are consequences. We all paid the price and are still paying the price of the financial meltdown of 2008 caused by greed, the irresponsible behavior of those leaders from Enron, Tyco, WorldCom, brought down billion-dollar companies, ruined employees' lives. 401ks became worthless because so many employees had their 401ks tied up in company stock and shareholder value lost. When a culture goes from excellence based on a strong code of ethics and integrity to a culture based upon self-gain, profit at any cost, one in which the end justifies the means, I guarantee you the ending will not be pretty. I have an example that I mentioned to the class several times. It was a personal experience about maybe 5, 6 years ago. I got a call from the president of our company, And he said, Paul, he says, would you hop a plane? We have a problem in one of our branches. And it was going to be about a week assignment. He says, when we get there, the hotel, I'll tell you about what happened. So catch an airplane, pack my bags for about a week, and I'm there. And he tells me that this particular division had a bad audit. From that, 4 people were let go. We went to the office, and the president addressed, I think we probably had about 150 people in that division. And the looks in their eyes of all of the employees, tears flowing, just disappointment, and it took a real hit to morale for that particular division. We were at the hotel when we met with one of the gentlemen, and I was there with our president, and one of the gentlemen that was terminated looked at him and said, I don't know why I'm here. I didn't do anything. And the president looked in his eyes. He said, you know, Tony, it's not what you did, it's what you didn't do. You knew this was going on. You knew funny accounting practices were going on, and you didn't say anything. The devastation, the effect that it had on those people, I will never forget. I ended up staying there not 2 weeks, but about 3 months. It took a long, long time for us to recover from that. Again, the actions of a few caused tremendous problems, and the consequences were devastating. Devastating for those 4 people, and devastating for the people that worked in this particular division. Whatever you do wrong, it will be discovered. It will be caught. There are auditors out there. They're terrific. There are consequences. Your actions will be discovered. I want you to always remember that. How many of you are accounting majors? Okay, good. Well, there's a lot of them here. Doesn't matter if you're in accounting, and anything you do, whether it's marketing or military or the teaching profession, anything you do wrong will indeed eventually be discovered, and the consequences will be great. I'm what you call a stock aficionado wannabe, and the emphasis on wannabe. I invest in stocks as more of a hobby or a pastime instead of a goal of making money. If I made a lot of money, I probably wouldn't be here today, but it's kind of fun to do that because it allows me to look at different companies. Some of the companies that I get, Johnson & Johnson, you know, GE, Abbott Labs, Discover Card, whatever. It's just kind of a fun hobby thing. You buy 5, 10 shares, and I would encourage you to do that. It's just a great way to find out about corporations and what they do and how they operate, and really gives you kind of an insight before you invest. I've done pretty well in the small investments that I've made, but curiosity about different companies is really why I do it. How they got started, how long they've been in business, what makes them tick, what really interests me. I really try to examine a business prior to making that commitment. I read Barron's, I read Wall Street Journal, I listen to CNBC, I read the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel on Sunday, I read Fortune magazine, I subscribe to Forbes. I mean, between the real simple catalog magazines in my home and the business magazines in my home, we could get in the business of magazines with all that we read at our house. But it's just kind of a fun exercise just to kind of look at these reports. The one thing that is not in these annual reports, you know, you read this thing and it talks about current assets, cash equivalents and inventories, goodwill, account payable, liabilities, all these things, but there's not a line for bad business behavior or a bad code of ethics. And it's very difficult as an investor to find out until something happens what went wrong. It takes a black swan event, like what I was talking about earlier. It takes a bad event to really bring down a company. It takes just a few people. It may take one person, it may take several people to bring down a company. And that's not what's in these financial reports. Unfortunately, people find out about that after they've made the investment. What's taken years and years for people in families to build, to create this Picasso of a business, this wonderful business that employs thousands and thousands of people, can be brought down suddenly by the actions of a few. No company goes into depth or wants to go into depth about their moral or how honest they are. That's just something that you stay away from. It's just assumed that the management is trustworthy and management will always do the right thing. They will choose honest practices when running their respective businesses. In conference calls to analysts, there is an absence of any discussion of code of conduct or behavior. The discussion is usually centered on the performance of the past quarters or future performance. Ladies and gentlemen, the examples I gave earlier of Enron, WorldCom, Tyco, and Cost are just a few examples of destructive behavior. Yes, studying a company's financials, their competition, innovation are extremely important when considering to invest in a company. Nothing will bring down a company faster than corruption, a compromise of business practices and ethics. You can fix performance, you can fix product, you can fix margins, but you can't fix bad behavior, business conduct and ethics. In most cases, it acts too quickly or acts fast enough to bring a company down. I place trust, a strong code of business conduct and ethics at the top of my list when grading a company or when hiring a prospective employee when considering someone for a promotion. That's at the top of my list. One other thing that we also have at our company that I think is a great thing is it's called a Clear Channel Hotline. And our employees, if they find something that accounting, auditing issues, antitrust, bribery, corruption, fraud, falsification of records, anything that they feel that they don't want to discuss with senior management, they have a hotline they can call, which I think is a great idea to report any activity within the company that they find is in violation of our code of business ethics. So it's unfortunate that we have to have these hotlines and have a 37-page code of business ethics, but in the world we live in today, sometimes people forget, and the cost is too high not to have certain parameters. The second thing I'd like to talk about is social or corporate responsibility. We've talked about the consequences of bad business behavior and conduct. Let's talk about the good side of ethics in business, one that focuses on the many things that good businesses do right. I refer to that as social corporate responsibility. A strong code of business ethics is about choosing right from wrong and obeying the law. It's that and more. It's about how we treat others in the community. It's about how we treat our fellow employees. It's about what we give back to the community. It's about respecting the environment, or environmental ethics, as they call it. I've talked about this book in company and person in my past two talks. Quite frankly, I can't find a better example of a company that touches on all those points I just mentioned. It's a book written by the founder and owner of Patagonia. His name is Yvon Chouinard. The book is called, and it'd be a great book for you to get, Let My People Go Surfing, The Education of a Reluctant Businessman. He also has an hour talk that he gave to the University of California, Santa Barbara. I don't know, it's got like almost 2 million hits on YouTube. Again, his name is Y-V-O-N, and Chouinard, C-H-O-U-I-N-A-R-D. If you have the time to view that, it's about an hour. I guarantee it'll be worth your time. But in the book, he points out 2 areas of corporate responsibility, internal and external. Internal, it's a company's responsibility to treat your employees well. You should focus on the employee before anything else. Patagonia gives sufficient time off to its employees, allowing them to recharge themselves. Patagonia is financially sound, no funny accounting practices here. Mrs. Chouinard just recently opened up one of the first office daycare centers. It benefits her business, but also creates a sense of worth. Here's how it pays off for them at Patagonia. They get hundreds and hundreds of resumes every day. People want to work for this company. People want to work for Patagonia. Then there's the external responsibility. It is when the product of a company produces, it's a product that a company produces, does the least amount of harm to the environment. Mr. Chouinard went to his individual suppliers, and although cotton is a product that grows naturally, he realized cotton growing does a lot of harm to the environment. He found that synthetic fibers were the best to use because they do the least amount of damage to the environment, because it's used least amount of fossil fuel to create the fiber. Social responsibility to the community. Dean Clements said earlier, I'm proud to say that in 2012, Clear Channel Outdoor Milwaukee Division partnered with over 100 causes, ranging from run walks, healthcare issues, and helplines, to fundraising, community awareness programs. We contributed over $1.6 million in advertising space. From time to time, our employees will cook, help serve meals to families staying at the Ronald McDonald House in Milwaukee. This past year, I've had the privilege to serve on the Capital Campaign Steering Committee to raise funds to double the size of the Ronald McDonald House. Just last week, we broke ground to make that dream possible, to accommodate 37 more families. I can't believe the participation from people and corporations who've donated to that wonderful cause. America, it has a culture of excellence. It is a country that provides the means for anyone to succeed if they really want to. Excellence and opportunity. These are qualities that separate us in our economic system from the rest of the world. It's when at any cost, by any means, or the means justifies the end, that crosses the line from ethical culture to a corrupted culture. There can be a fine balance. It doesn't take much to tilt the scale. We saw that in a few examples I discussed earlier in my talk. One individual, one bad apple can do enormous damage to the institutions. Just recently we had SAC Capital accused of insider trading. We had a partner, I believe at KPMG, who was on the take. I think he took $50,000 to provide information for insider trading. It goes on and on and on. But remember, it's a small percentage, but it doesn't take much to ruin the reputation of a company. It doesn't take much to take a company down. And following all these horrible accounting mishaps in 2002 with the WorldCom and Adelphia and Enron and Tyco, you think that they would know better, but this conduct continues continues on and on and on. And I think they think that they can get away with it. And I just want to emphasize that you will not get away with it. It's just the wrong thing to do, so get it out of your mind. If you're going to get in the area of business, do it for the right thing. Don't take the easy way out. Stephen CoBE wrote a book a few years ago called the speed of trust, the one thing that changes everything. In the book he states, trust is so basic to business that it is rarely discussed in an analytical and accessible way. The more trust within a company, the faster it can move with lower cost. Think of the adverse impact 9/11 had at the time, and the cost of air travel, longer lines, more security because of the damage it did to trust. It goes on to say in his book, integrity, or without integrity, you have no foundation on which to place trust. CoBE defines integrity as being honest, telling the truth, and leaving the correct impression. Beyond honesty, integrity requires three things. Number one, congruence. Behavior consistent with your values inspires trust. Number two, humility. What is right has to be more important than being right. And three, courage. When the right action is hard, integrity requires courage. Trust is so integral to our relationships that we often take it for granted. And I want to repeat that again. Trust is so integral to our relationships that we often take it for granted. And this is a quote from Christopher Reeves, the actor who played Superman, who tragically passed away in 2004 as a result of a fatal cord spinal injury. He writes, "Our greatest human challenge is to behave according to our beliefs, to do the right thing, to practice what we preach, hold yourself to high standards, and continually evaluate the image you see in the mirror. It will build your character. Respect. Treat others with dignity and make sure your behaviors are respectful. It will make you a person of quality. Courage. Follow your conscience instead of following the crowd. Integrity. Choose rightness over what is easy or convenient." We all have that little voice inside us that will guide us. If we shut out all the noise and clutter from our lives and listen to that voice, it'll tell us everything we need to know. It'll tell us to do the right thing. Thank you. I want to talk about one more thing. I was a part of a panel a couple of years ago. It was called LEAP. LEAP is here at the university. It's a signature campaign of the Association of American Colleges and Universities. The purpose of the campaign has been to highlight the relevance and importance of undergraduate education. I, along with two other panelists, along with our counterparts at Cal State, each offered our perspective on employment in our respective parts of the country, in particular how educators can best prepare our students and what students here at Whitewater can do to prepare for whatever's coming in this rapidly changing world and economy we live in. But there's a few things I want to share with you that I discussed with as part of the panel. Number one, are all you undergraduates, or are any of you going for your master's? Are you, masters? Okay. Your masters? Okay, so there's several going for their masters, and majority of you are undergrad. Okay, well, this will apply to anyone looking for a job, graduating from Whitewater or looking for a job. Some points that I talked about that I think are important when here at Whitewater preparing yourself for the workplace. Number one, be like Apple or Samsung. Innovate, reinvent yourself, invest constantly in education, re-educating yourself. Make yourself relevant. Stay in tune with whatever's changing. Technology changes. Self-development classes. Number two, your first job will probably not be your last job. but it may have a lot to do with determining your career path. We had a gal at our office. She was a POP director, proof of performance director. She showed a keen interest in another area of our business, marketing. And because she did that, because she really had kind of a passion for it, she was promoted to a marketing assistant of our company. She has since moved on, but she went from POP director to a marketing assistant. I guess my point here, and my advice to all of you, is take advantage of these small opportunities seriously. Sometimes, you know, when you get into a company and you're not totally fulfilled with what you're doing, maybe you want to ask for more responsibility. And chances are, company these days particular are going to give you that responsibility. So a lot of that is up to you. Don't just take for granted the position that you were given and this is my job, this is all I can do. Make yourself marketable, make yourself more valuable. In her particular case, it worked out great. She went into that area, she learned a lot about marketing, and she got even a better job. So good for her on that. Pursue career choices early on. Pursue career choices even after you've graduated. Attend job fairs. Ask questions to job fair employers. Network. You may not find the career choice you want, but it will allow you to inquire. You'll never know until you get out there. There is a great skill sets needed, but going unfulfilled. There's a lot of these job fairs where, you know, students are not going up to the employer and finding out, you know, what's available. There's a lot of new things that are happening in this world today, and some of these employers are being ignored. I think it'd be to your advantage to find out what they do. I mean, if it's something that doesn't interest you, whatever, you can walk away. But there's just so many niche opportunities that are going on in the business world today that I strongly advise you to attend these job fairs. Think global. If you can, and I know the cost of education has really gone up, and I know my son, he's attending master's degree, trying to get his master's degree at Denver, University of Denver. And he went to London back in his junior year, and he's got bills like the rest of you. There were a lot of young adults in his class, a very diverse group of people. Most of those people spoke 2 to 3 languages. What he came back with, he said, Dad, he says, I attended that course in London at this university, and there's a lot of smart people out there. There are a lot of people that know more than English. They know a lot of different languages. Wonderful people, diverse backgrounds. And your competition is not only here, your competition is the rest of the world. So if you can get away, visit another country, take some courses, maybe attend a semester overseas, that'd be a wonderful thing, just to see how the rest of the world operates. It's a global world out there. It's not limited to just the United States anymore. We have a new CEO who's based in New York, and he's from London. About 6 months ago, he had a discussion about our Russian market, our market in China, Spain, Singapore, and a whole bunch of other countries, Turkey, Spain, England, the whole world. It kind of opens up your eyes to what's going out there. And in his half-hour discussion that he had with us, there was no even mention about America. It was all about the rest of the world. So that's what's going on. A global approach to learning offers a diverse background to a prospective employer. I talked a little bit about community involvement. volunteer outreach. Join a service organization. Join a community organization. Do charitable work. Give back to the community. Start young. And if you haven't started, start. I've made myself belong to a lot of public service organizations, not because I'm not busy enough, but it really exposed me to just a lot of wonderful people who are trying to do good in this world and trying to give back. And the other thing, it's a great networking opportunity. I've met more people in these organizations, and they can teach you a thing or two as well. I'm at the office every day, and I'm with 50, 60 other people, and it's the same 50 or 60 people in that office. So until you get outside the office, your dialogue, your conversations are pretty much constrained to 50, 60 people. So joining these community organizations gives you the opportunity not only to give back, but to really learn a lot from other people. Jeff Joris, who's the CEO of Manpower, says being lifelong learners is crucial for employees. Every few years, you need to go back to universities for classes to brush up on your skills, to learn new things. If you can't embrace lifelong learning, your job will end before you want it to end. That is very true. You got to continue to learn. You just can't graduate from this university and expect to know what's going on, because things are changing. I just met with 4 people from from a New York office, a sales consultant firm, and we had like a 4-hour discussion, and just the things we talked about this morning were, are things that are issues of the future. So you have to know what's going on. You got to keep yourself relevant. You got to continue to learn and continue to take classes and learn as much as you possibly can, because the world is changing so quickly. Last but not least, I'm going to take this thing full circle. Always conduct yourself with the highest integrity. When looking at companies for a career choice, look at their leadership. Look at how they conduct their business affairs and how they treat people. Those are companies you want to work for. And ladies and gentlemen, that is extremely important, because I'll tell you something, life is too short to work for a company where you have to compromise your values or your ethics, where you can't be what you want to be. Run, don't walk from those companies. Always look for their leadership. Ask them questions. What's your social responsibility? What is your commitment to the community? Ask questions, probe, find out what makes that company tick, because the last thing you want to do is get a job and find out that you're working for people who are less than ethical. So that's it. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions, anyone? Please kind enough to come here. You have lots of wisdom, and I've seen people asking them questions.
Any question, really, I'll try to answer it.
Obviously arrived at the last minute because I have other responsibilities. But what do you do with different cultures?
What do I do with what, sir?
Different cultures. When you live in a culture that has a different set of ethics, they assume that's how you're supposed to behave, and then you have your own raising. Do you blend the two? Do you honor your own? Do you accept theirs? Do you create a new one that's more international standards?
I'll give you a very simple answer to that. Right is right, wrong is wrong. There's a book that our former CEO wrote, and the name of that is something. I forget, it's with an integrity. But anyway, there was a chapter in the book where we were bidding on a contract, and he was not CEO at the time, but in the book it said that we would have to compromise our ethics if we were going to pursue that contract. Clearly stated that.
So what does that mean? Does that mean, where is the piece of land you live on? Which piece of
Well,
land?
this was a country in Europe that, you know, expected something in return for what was given. That's a pretty simple right or wrong thing to do. And when companies start to engage in that kind of activity, it's just a matter of time before their goose is going to be cooked. So, does that kind of answer your question? Where,
Basically,
yeah,
just hold it, it'll come, it'll just breathe through it.
yeah, you know, I mean, sometimes people. What's your first name? Scott, sometimes people in life just put you in that position, or sometimes they don't exactly tell you what they want, but you can read between the lines. Like, sometimes it depends upon the upbringing that you've had. But again, it gets back to a, you know, strong code of business ethics. If a company is not going to have a strong code of business ethics for you to follow, again, I suggest that you not work for that particular company. I mean, right is right, wrong is wrong, and doesn't matter what country you live in, doesn't matter what culture it is. You know, if you're being asked to do something illegal or violation of business ethics, you don't do it. I mean, that's probably the simplest answer I can give you. I don't think, and maybe there's countries that do approve of it. I have not been to a country that has, but that's a great question, because
There was an interesting article in Harvard Business Review in 2007
Yeah.
about G. And G, they just find the strictest standard and they live up
Right.
to that. And also the thing about firing people, they actually fired some
Yeah.
really good people.
yeah,
Although they had in-depth local knowledge, but they wanted to show
Yeah.
what values they stood for. So that's really sent like a strong message.
Scott, I can say, being in business for nearly 40 years, I can honestly say I've never been asked to do anything that would violate my ethics or how I've been raised, and I know what the answer would be. It's not worth it. I mean, it's something that will be with you for the rest of your life. The consequences are bad. I mean, the story's going to end bad. And part of the problem with some of the people I talked about in WorldCom and Tyco and some of these companies that were caught in the Cost Corporation, you know, they got away with it for a while. You know, they got away with it one day, the next day, the next day, the next day, and you know, the next day they wanted more and more and more, and they got cute about it, and you know, it not only brought down their careers, but it ended badly for many other people too. So, you know, I don't know if any culture, if any country, or any business in any other country, especially a big business, would approve of that. Not to say that it hasn't gone on, because it has, as examples of what I just got through saying. But you don't have to be a part of it. You don't have to be a part of that. Thanks, Scott. Good question. Yes, sir. What's your name, sir?
My name's Anthony.
Anthony.
Yeah. Do you think that any of the problem lies in that people would much rather take the Band-Aid solutions to fix their companies that they see that are going down than take the blame for actually fixing it, even though it's going to go down, but over the long period of time, you're going to better off the company?
Yeah, that's a good question, Anthony. You know, part of the problem is, you know, desperate people do desperate things. And like I said in my talk, you know, companies are moving at lightning speed, and the competition and the sense of urgency to do good and better than the next guy. Look at the battle that's going on between Apple and Samsung. I mean, one day it's Apple, one day it's Samsung, and you know. So the stakes are high with regard to personal reward, return for the company, respect on Wall Street, all that. But you know, sometimes people get caught up in basically saying that, hey, you know, let's try this and let's try that, no matter what it means. The end justifies the means. In other words, we got to get this product to market faster. We got to do this to improve earnings, and they sometimes do things that cause more harm than good. So, you know, it's just, they get caught up in trying to do what sometimes these analysts in Wall Street want you to do. You know, their expectations are big. They ask a lot of tough questions on the conference calls. And, you know, you're expected to answer that question. And you know, sometimes it's not about past performance, sometimes it's about future performance. And, you know, Wall Street's is less interested in past performance and more interested in what you're going to do. So, you know, it's like I say, desperate people sometimes do dumb things, desperate things. Does that answer that, Anthony?
Well, I was more thinking like if the company is losing money, instead of actually trying to fix it in the future, they would do something like overstating their assets that they have so that they can balance, so that they can cook their books and seem like they're still doing really well instead of taking the hard solution and fixing it.
Yeah, and that's what happened in some of these cases. With Tyco, happened in Enron, where they overstated, you know, their worth of their company by billions. It happened with Adelphia. You know, I shouldn't say it happens all the time, but it happens. And, you know, in order to fix things with Wall Street, you know, let's overstate this or let's overstate that. But, you know, generally that comes out in audits. It's just a matter of time before corrupt accounting practices will find you. And like the example that I gave in our particular company, where auditors came through and it didn't take a whole long time to find out what had happened. So, you know, like I say, it may take 2 years, it may take 4 years or whatever, but it'll be discovered. And, you know, I think the bigger you are, overstating your earnings is, don't even go there. That's something very simple to find out. Anything else? Yeah, Praveen.
Just in general, you know, when you look at Dow Jones and so on, it's going up. You look at unemployment, things don't seem to be improving. What are you seeing? Are things getting better in general, economically speaking?
Well, yeah, I think corporations have really done a good job preserving their cash. You take a look at a company like Apple, which has about $150 billion in reserves. You know, here's what's going on. What's going on is companies, through technology and through efficiencies and just, you know, hiring good people, you know, they can do things that they didn't do before. I mean, I remember a time when I got in this business, we had, you know, 5 secretaries typing and whatever. You know, I mean, you had staff and you had people that you really no longer need. And with the advance in technology that we have today, you know, we can do things smarter, better, and faster, and that's terrific for earnings. And those are good things for revenue. And in companies, I think one of the biggest criticisms of analysts are your expenses. If your expenses are high, That's the first thing you look at. Why are your expenses high? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing with unnecessary expenses? So companies are very accountable to their bottom line. And if revenues aren't increasing faster than their expenses, they got to do something. They got to watch their cash. They don't want to have happen what happened to them in 2008. They don't want to have happen now. And if the economy, there's a lot of uncertain things going on in the economy right now. You've got the health care bill. You've got a lot of regulations. You have increased taxes that are going on. There are a lot of unknowns that are going on in business today. So corporations are preserving their cash and being smarter about their decisions. So, just because their earnings are greater doesn't necessarily mean that results in greater hiring. Revenues are, in particular, some industries are doing very, very well, but I think one of the reasons why Wall Street's going up and the stock market's going up is because the earnings and corporations are preserving their cash and paying dividends. I mean, that's another thing too, is if you take a look at the dividends that are being paid out today, General Mills pays about a 3.2% interest. AT&T pays over a 5% interest. So, a lot of these companies are taking their cash and they're distributing it to shareholders for shareholder value. So they're giving it back to shareholders and watching their other expenses, because that's where they see the return on their investment and their share price. Yes.
Employers can learn a lot about employees or potential employees by looking at Facebook pages or other social media. I'm wondering if you think that that's an okay practice for businesses to look at the Facebook pages, or even ask perhaps for those Facebook passwords to do a little bit more digging, or do you think that's a violation of privacy?
I don't like it. I really don't. I mean, I'm not a Facebook lover. I was on initial public offering for Facebook, and I got slammed by that. So that's why I'm not a big fan of Facebook. But anyway, just with LinkedIn, you've got Plaxo, and you've got Twitter, and you've got Facebook. I don't think companies are looking at that. I just think that I think a lot of people are volunteering a lot of information out there that doesn't need to be out there, and you need to be careful. I mean, no one's going to ask your permission if it's out there and you're saying some dumb things on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. It's there for the world to see. And I don't think they have to ask for your permission because it's there. I don't do it. I don't have time to do it, but I'm sure it's done. And the fact that it's there, is that an ethical? I don't know. I think we all know enough to be prudent and to be careful about what we say, what we put out there. And when we put something out there for the world to see, that's anybody's property. I don't know if any employer actually going in and looking at those social media sites to find out about anybody. I'm sure it exists, to be honest with you. I'm sure it does. Two more questions. Okay.
How did you help the division of your company bounce back after dealing with the unethical behavior that was happening?
Well, that was one small division that we had. It took time. It took time to, we put another executive in there, someone who, basically restored faith, culture in that particular branch, and emphasized that this is the kind of behavior we don't want to be involved in. And of all the thousands and thousands of employees we have, sometimes people just do dumb things, you know, and it just takes a while for it to be discovered. And sometimes they can influence others to do things. Sometimes people feel pressured because, oh, my boss is doing it, and then all of a sudden your boss says, hey, you know, Martha, this is being done, but be quiet, whatever. You know, that's why, one of the reasons why we have this hotline is to give people the opportunity to call this number, and they don't have to go to their supervisor. They don't have to go to their boss. They can call this number and in a very confidential way, you know, allow them to voice what's going on. And that's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do because we see what happens when this activity is allowed to continue in companies. After a while, you know, this one's brought in, that one's brought in. Before you know it, you know, the company's destroyed. You know, you take a look at a company like Enron, you know, where it took down 21,000 people in shareholders. I mean, people had their life savings invested in the company stock. So when that culture is allowed to permeate, allowed to advance, bad things happen, and a hotline like that we have allows an individual to say, look, you know, I smell something wrong. And they do it in a very confidential way. And you know, it's a way to bring the bad activity to an end. Thank you.